Good go of it, though.
Listen,
You are striking out.
I'm pro tem for a reason, guys.
Yeah.
Don't know all the ins and outs yet.
All right.
Try to get the time right tonight. Dates.
She gave you the thumbs up.
Well, except we just lost the
Oh,
Zoom. Just a
Yeah,
minute.
no problem, James.
Sorry.
I got you.
I don't know why we lost the Zoom.
Maybe even get the pen.
Did we just lose Zoom? That was me. That must have been me. Sorry about that, James.
That's okay.
I was trying to stay co-host. I didn't want to be the host.
I gotta miss this.
I am, because I know you love it so much.
Recording in progress.
Okay, we're back.
Okay, welcome everyone to the February 25th, 2025 meeting. My name is Ryan. I am Mayor Pro Tem, sitting in for David. And Pam, can you please call the meeting to order?
Absolutely. Let's begin with Dieter Schindler,
Here.
Angela Anderson,
Here.
Rick Stevens,
Here.
Hannah Berman,
Here.
Angèle Dupré-Bouchard,
Here.
Ryan Slack,
Here.
and David Knight is out. Okay, thank you.
First item on the agenda is the consent agenda from February 11th. And that is it. So I would take a motion.
Mayor, I move that the town council approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Second.
It's been approved and seconded. Pam, I think we can voice vote on that?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I forgot Pam said it to me. Aye. Any opposed? No opposed. We will move on. Second is the call to the public. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes and address your comments directly to the mayor. Identify yourself by name and address when making comments. Comments should be courteous, civil, and constructive. Town council will make no decision nor take action except to direct the town manager. So, you're here, sir. Let's hear it.
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Gray War. I am the Executive Director of Harvest for Hunger. We currently have a mini refrigerator in the Basalt Public Library where we distribute food to anyone and everyone that needs food, that is food insecure. We are currently opening our new food pantry and the new response building that is opening across the street next to the parking lot. You recently granted us $2,000 and we wanted to say thank you so much. It is going to feed so many people. And our new food pantry is stigma-free, so we do not collect any personal data. And we feed people that need food in the valley. And we just recently partnershiped with Response. They take care of those that are abused, and we just want to say thank you. So
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's great.
Anyone else in the room? Anyone online for public comment?
No.
I'm going to say no. Okay, we can move on to mayor and council reports. Few comments. I don't see anyone. I have one. I was meant to bring it up last meeting, but I totally forgot. I'd like to compliment staff and the excavation company. They had a little bit of debris blowing around before the last storm. Brought it to Ryan and James's attention. They got on it. They were there that night. They were there the next day. But I appreciate them getting right on top of it. I think we could learn from it and hope we can help keep other job sites a little cleaner going forward. But I do really appreciate them taking it serious and fixing it very quickly. So, anyone else? Okay, manager's report.
I don't have anything new to update you on at the moment.
Okay. Well, we will move on to presentations. First presentation is the Midland Streetscape Update.
Hi, Mayor and Council. I think we have Joe on the line. He's going to give you a brief monthly update on the project.
Yeah, I'll just do a sound check. Can you guys hear me all right?
We hear you.
Yes.
It's going to be very brief, guys. So we haven't done a lot by design. A couple signs since the last meeting got installed. A little bit more lighting prep. Got some bollards and jersey barricades around the transformers and a section lighting cabinet on the east side of town. But otherwise, we are in a holding pattern till weather warms up, frost gets out of the soil, and we will get everything finished. The lights are still in fabrication. We expect a ship date in March. So, unfortunately, that is all we have to update you on, but we are ready to hit the ground running as soon as weather and deliveries allow.
Thank you. I know the team was in last week trying to fix the potholes, but I'm wondering if we could have them back this week since the weather's nicer, and maybe they could bring that roller and compress that stuff a little more. Anyone?
Yeah, we can work on that. I know they were working on it on Friday again before the weekend, but I can touch base with those guys
Please.
again.
It's just so bad, especially with the runoff and the way.
The freeze-thaw cycle is really brutal, but I totally understand. We'll try to stay on it and make sure we get
And if they could roll it, I know it's a lot more to bring down that roller, but I feel like that helps create that compression to prevent some of these. I know it's not going to be perfect and it's temporary, but it deteriorates. I mean, I feel like the day they did it, that night it was deteriorated. So we're kind of chasing. So maybe if we give it a little more college try. Okay. Okay. Well, moving on, man. We're absolutely hauling. I should be mayor more often. First council action, 7A, first reading of ordinance number 5, series of 2025. Ordinance of the Town Council of Town of Basalt, Colorado, approving town code amendment, amending chapter 13, municipal water utilities, and amending Apex C fee schedule, water department charges and fees. Catherine.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. So tonight we're bringing to you some municipal code amendments related to Chapter 13, specific to our water system. A lot of these, it's truly just cleanup work. When we went through the effort of going through or developing the water utility master plan, we additionally looked at our municipal code section and just wanted the code to truly reflect how we operate and make sure it's reflecting the right staff members. And there were just some updates to be done. So these code amendments, for the most part, simply reflect, how we do business and make sure that the code is reflective of that. It also, as you know, we continue to try to move all of our fees into the fee schedule rather than have them intermittently throughout the code. So it also does that. That's largely a summary of the code changes before you, but I'm happy to answer any questions you have, and I brought Robbie along with me in case you have any questions for her around her operations and some of the changes that we're proposing tonight.
I have one, Catherine. Mid Valley Water and Sand provides water and sanitation to Willets. Are their fees comparable or close, or, we're going to be doing a couple of projects down there one of these days with housing, and hopefully they're 100%
Yeah, it's a
affordable.
little.
So I'm wondering about any forgiveness there on
Yeah.
fees.
Well, and I guess I'll just take a step back to say the changes before you tonight don't reflect our water fees. So that was something that was adopted last fall. These are other fees. But as it relates to Mid-Valley Metro, it's a bit of a different beast because their infrastructure is relatively new compared to ours being, portions are over 100 years old. And as Willett's developed, their system's newer. So they've had the benefit in recent years of getting a lot of tap fees as development has occurred. So they've been able to, work well with getting those fees as people have developed, where our system is a little bit different in age.
Right.
But we did do a comparison when we made that presentation in the fall around different municipalities' fees, and if I'm remembering correctly, I think we were kind of in the mix of things and relatively similar to some of other communities. But I can dig up that presentation and.
I'm just curious what a 14-unit project would be in fees to Mid-Valley,
Yeah, I don't have.
part of the, if it's a bulk meter or a,
Right.
probably is.
Yeah, we'd be happy to answer that question when we move forward with our development over there and let you know
Okay,
what that is.
thanks.
Do these code fixes or changes like fall in place with the master plan as sort of like the water master plan as we are expecting them to, I guess?
Yep, they do. And a lot of them addressed, updates to CDPHE's regulations and things like that. So it was kind of a modernization of our code and making sure we're keeping up with the times, but yes.
Any other questions, concerns? I would like to thank Robbie for all her hard work and tell her I as a concerned citizen, I forwarded them to Robbie and she gave a great response. And so I appreciate you being on top of our water system, and he had forwarded it to me, but it was awesome to see. So thank you for being involved in your job.
When's the tour?
Anytime you want, Rick, I'm here every day.
She says if her truck's there, you can knock on the door. That's what she told me.
There was a comment, I think a couple weeks ago about, taking a tour of the facilities up at the tank, just
Yeah.
for the fun of it.
I think in the spring when it warms up.
When it warms up.
do that.
It's
Not
gonna be
so
60 Friday.
Mayor, I move that the town council approve ordinance number 5, series of 2025 on first reading and set the public hearing and second reading for March 11th, 2025.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Voice vote? Or
You can do a voice vote. Yeah.
all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? It passes.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Robbie. We were moving on to 7B, Resolution Number 5, Series of 2025. Resolution of the Town Council of Basalt, Colorado, adopting the Pickens County Emergency Operation Plan, adopting the Eagle County Emergency Operation Plan, and the Eagle County Hazardous Mitigation Plan. Greg and Harper.
Harper's got this.
Appeared right away, I like that.
So the Eagle County Hazard Mitigation Plan, these hazard mitigation plans need to be updated every 5 years to maintain eligibility for grant funding through state requirements. And hazard mitigation plans identify major hazards to communities and develop mitigation plans and cooperation between the various communities involved. And we were part of the development of this plan. We're also part of the Pickens County Hazard Plan. And then the emergency operation plans are designed to coordinate efforts to respond to emergencies that crop up.
And in 2023, this council approved the Pickens County Hazard Mitigation Plan. So that will go through 2028. We'll start working on it then. And then 29 will be adoption of that. So I wish all four were together at the same time frame, but there's kind of the one-off, but it's all, so that we're completely covered pre and post disaster if we need it.
Any questions from council?
I guess I'm just curious, is this a collaborative effort of all organizations like at the same table, or is it 3 different kinds of groups? Just curious how that comes together.
Yeah, so both the hazard mitigation plan and the emergency operation plan are a collaborative effort amongst all the agencies and special districts that choose to participate in it within that county. So we primarily worked with the hazard mitigation plan of Pitkin County and emergency operation plan of Pitkin County because of proximity and location. This is where everybody helps each other. Eagle County, we participated in that, but it's more on the Vail Valley side. Eagle and Vail Valley is where they really get into the nuts and bolts of it. So yeah, it's collaborative amongst all the agencies, municipalities, counties, and special districts that choose to participate. We all sit around tables, we all go through all of our identifications, our needs, our wants, and then for the hazard mitigation side of it, the identification of hazards and mitigation strategies of those. For the emergency operations plan, we all come back together and we do tabletop exercises and we coordinate training together so that we're all training under that emergency operation plan for a unified response to an issue in a municipality or in the county.
Cool. Thank you.
Do you, we've had some pretty good luck lately with a couple subdivisions up valley on the wildfire mitigation and working with Aspen and the collaborative with the Institute's program. Do you guys have any formal agreement with the fire department that reflects some of those things that are coming out with the fire collaborative, Firewise communities, things like that? Is there any?
So if I may,
Venture.
can I put you on the spot? So town manager is part of that wildfire collaborative as the representative for the town.
Right.
So you can speak to it much better than I can.
Yeah. Is it starting to formalize and become a little bit stronger?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the collaborative itself, which represents, the municipalities, counties, and fire districts up and down the valley, I think have done a great job of getting together, sharing information, identifying, potential issues with, each municipality or county, things they might want to protect, critical infrastructure, things like that. But then also identifying critical areas to mitigate, to really kind of protect us at the landscape level. So that's really the point of that collaborative. But the work that we have slated for this year in the town is a cooperation between CPW, the town of Basalt, and the state forest. And the state forest is, helping with some grants to do that. So I would say that's proof positive of it working.
Right.
And Angie Davlin, who's our executive director for that, has done an amazing job getting grants. So there's, at this point, I think I can safely say millions of dollars coming into mitigation in this valley, and that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, we did have the 2 districts meet with the fire chief. One of the things they were talking about was the new system that they have for wildfire detection and prevention, and the new mapping that's available too that they're using up there that identifies at-risk properties on an individual house basis. The other thing that keeps coming up is evacuation, and one of the comments was made that the fire is going to come from down valley. It's like, well, we don't know where the fire is going to come from, but the issue of evacuating that community keeps coming up, and they're going to be coming down 82, and that's going to be a kind of an interesting.
If I may, on the evacuation side, we along with all the agencies in Eagle County, along with all the agencies in Pitkin County, are using the Genesis evacuation and notification program. It was before you all when we discussed that. So Lieutenant Aaron Munch and I today were just on, getting our fingers into it. All of our predefined zones and areas have been defined, but now how do we put it into implementation if we need it? And so training will be over next week at training in Eagle County. Pitkin County's doing trainings. We're getting all of our folks to that so that we can roll that out if needed, knock on wood.
And then sites for people to gather and all that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's all in
This is all good to convince the residents that I'm in touch with to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And make an effort. And if they knew more about this, and a lot of them, of course, don't live here full-time, so it takes a long time.
Sure.
Good, yeah.
There's also an effort, a new law passed that requires all municipalities and counties to pass minimum standards for building code.
Mhm, yeah.
So I've been sitting on the Eagle County side, kind of reviewing those, and they're also looking at landscape. So the landscaping that goes in as part of development, and what's appropriate. So it's getting down to the ground level of where on a property is appropriate to plant certain types of plants,
Right.
etc. So I think generally from the state all the way down to here in Basalt, people are taking this pretty seriously, and all of this coordination is happening. So I'd say that is a bright spot, and our work that we're doing is an example of kind of putting it into action. But that's not to say there's not a lot more work to be done with mitigation in this valley, and it does take time. Honestly, I don't know what's going to happen with what's happening at the federal government level and funding and cutting resources. So I think that's going to change. Scott Fitzwilliams is leaving the forest. That's a big deal for us, I would say. So we're going to have to stand by and see, what shakes out there. But we're going to keep doing our part. And as far as I know, they still have the prescribed burn, happening this spring.
Up on Red Mountain?
Up on Red Mountain,
Yeah.
So.
Good, I think it's a really good time to push harder on the population here to pay attention to this, because it's going to get mandated in September or October anyway. So it's, and it's not expensive in the long run if you approach it properly. And new builds and new remodels, things like that are going to probably come under that new code.
Yeah, they will.
They will, so that'll help. And we have a lot of redevelopment opportunities in Basalt. And I think we're seeing some of that up on the hill right now. They're getting a lot bigger structures up there, less safe space between structures. And that's something that's been pointed out a couple times to me, and I took a ride up there. I think it might be worth looking at as we're going through this code process.
Well, and Michelle's actually been working on and is getting ready to start an effort to do some code amendments specifically for the Hill District, and kind of looking through an historic preservation lens, but then I think just what other redevelopment, what is appropriate as far as mass scaling and that sort of lens. So that's underway.
Good.
If
One
I
more
may,
quick.
Mr. Mayor, one more.
Oh, sorry.
Oh.
Just on that, Pitkin is starting to move away from setbacks and FAR to site coverage. That takes into consideration all these geographical issues and vegetation and stuff. So that's kind of that just came up a week or so ago, which I think is an interesting approach on the hillside stuff. But anyway, sorry, Chief.
No, I'm sorry for interrupting. And I just want to throw a shout out to the Pitkin and Eagle County emergency managers and their offices for the coordination of these documents. If you look, there are hundreds of pages, and getting all of the participating agencies together and putting forward a document that is understandable and usable by the communities, it's not an easy task. So great job to them.
I would also like to throw in, sitting in the Basalt emergency management meetings, it's very apparent of the collaboration between not only the counties, but the chief, the police department, the fire department. It's a very interesting meeting if anyone ever wants to sit in. I think it's like the second Thursday of the month. And so
Yes, every other month.
every other month, but very, very awesome to see. I mean, this room is just full with very intelligent and prepared people. So I've been hearing about this coming down the pipeline, so it's exciting to see it in front of us.
Mayor, I move that the town council adopt resolution number 5, series of 2025.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We can do a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No, it passes. On to the next one. 7C, public hearing and second reading of ordinance number 4, series of 2025. An ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Basalt, Colorado for the regulation of traffic by the Town of Basalt, Colorado, repealing and reenacting parts of the Basalt Municipal Code, Chapter 8, Article 1, and thereby adopting by reference the 2024 edition of the Model Traffic Code and providing penalties for violation thereof. And you guys are still here.
Yep.
How convenient.
This is, again, just a routine update of the model traffic code, which the state comes out with about every 4 years. And we've already had several local amendments to the model traffic code in our code. And we just matched those up with the 2024 edition to make sure they were still relevant and current and all the numbers were correctly in alignment, and then also updated our penalty schedule to coincide with that. And the ordinance also includes the new law on driving with a mobile device. So we updated that as well.
And we were before you at your last meeting for first reading. There's been no additions, revisions to what was presented at that meeting. So this is just carrying through from first reading.
And this is a public hearing, so we should take public comment as well.
Well, since it's a public hearing, I will open the public hearing at 6:29. No one's in the public. Guessing Steve doesn't want to talk about it. No one's online. I'm going to close the public hearing at 6:29. I will open it up to any counselor comments or questions. And if none, I would entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that Town Council adopt ordinance number 4, series of 2025 on second reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Now we do have to call the roll on this. No? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you for being here early, Steve, because we're about to hammer it. Moving on, 7D, public hearing and first reading, ordinance number 6, series of 2025, an ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Basalt approving amendments to the Basalt Center Circle BCC project's deed-restricted housing provisions related to Colorado Mountain College's potential purchase of 9 deed-restricted units at 140 Basalt Center Circle, lots A through E, Basalt Center Subdivision, Basalt, Colorado. James.
Thank you. We have Steve Scadron here from CMC, representing the applicant group. This item, as the mayor indicated, is a public hearing and first reading of an ordinance that would approve of an amendment request submitted by Colorado Mountain College on behalf of BCC Basalt LLC. It's requesting amendments to the rental provisions on 9 of the deed-restricted units in the Basalt Center Circle BCC development project at 140 Basalt Center Circle. As background, the BCC development project was approved for construction of a grocery and 65 dwelling units in place of the Clark's Market building, the former Clark's Market building that was recently demolished. As part of the approvals, there are 17 deed-restricted units with rental caps that are required to be constructed. And ordinance number 9, series of 2024, was approved, and it allowed for the condominiumization of the units. It set out priority purchasers for the 17 deed-restricted units, and those priority purchasers included the town of Basalt, employers of the on-site commercial space, the RE1 school district, and entities employing first responders in the Mid-Valley. And so after those organizations were offered the potential to purchase units,
Then the remaining units were given an offer to nonprofit organizations and special districts in the Basalt area. And the 17 units were offered for sale to these organizations that we've got on the slide. It was also sent, this list, to the town council previously. And 8 of the 17 units were selected for purchase by those organizations, with the town, Rock Bottom Ranch ACES, and the Roaring Fork Conservancy deciding that they would like to purchase units. And CMC also expressed interest in purchasing 9 of the units. And CMC, however, would like to purchase the 9 units with some amendments that are requested and are in your packet. CMC would like to have the ability for their employees as well as college students that work in Basalt area to have a priority in renting the 9 units that CMC would like to purchase. And then if there are not CMC employees or college students working in Basalt that are looking to rent the units, then CMC employees and college students that work elsewhere in the Roaring Fork Valley could then have an ability to rent them. And then it would waterfall down to town employees, on-site commercial employees, RE1 school district employees, and first responding employees to be able to rent them. And so those are the entities that were in the ordinance number 9 of 2024. CMC has also requested the ability, as we've got here in their draft language, to be able to sell the units to their employees as a priority, while putting on a 3% appreciation cap per year to maintain that the units would stay attainable and affordable. And then if they didn't have employees that wanted to purchase them, if they resold the units, then it would give priority to the town, the on-site commercial operators, RE1 school district, and first responding organizations to be able to purchase them if CMC ever were to sell those 9 units. The Basalt Affordable Community Housing Commission, BAC, as well as the P&Z reviewed the requests and were supportive of the rental adjustments to permit CMC employees and college students that meet the employment requirements and income requirements to have the initial priority to rent the units. However, BAC and P&Z were not supportive of the purchase amendment that's requested by CMC to allow for individual CMC employees to be able to purchase the units from CMC, and instead recommended maintaining the priority to purchase the units for the town of Basalt, the on-site commercial, and then the first responding agencies and RE1 school district. So the ordinance that you have in your packet represents the BAC and P&Z recommendation that would approve of the rental request by CMC, but not the ability to sell to their individual employees. So this evening, staff would recommend taking applicant comments from Steve representing CMC, and then you can ask questions of staff and the applicant. And it is a public hearing, so we would suggest taking public comments after that and providing discussion. And once again, as I noted, the ordinance represents the BAC and P&Z recommendation. Steve, do you have comments for council?
Oh, thank you, James. James' review was comprehensive, but I would say thank you for the opportunity. And it's our goal to help Basalt satisfy some of its local housing goals. And it's a privilege to be considered as a nonprofit after everybody else. I want to recognize that we were last along the long list of nonprofits. And it was just fortunate that we were in a position to perhaps both as a matter of our goals and our financial position to be able to step up and perhaps secure the deed-restricted units so locals could live in Basalt. James, should I touch on any specific details?
The one thing I would add is that the units that are remaining available are all studio units. The town purchased the 1 and 2 bedroom units are available, or at least we're under contract to purchase them. I think that would be the other qualification. So with that, staff would suggest asking questions that you have of staff or the applicants.
Should I do public comment first, or?
You can, sure.
I'm just gonna do public comment. I'm gonna open public comment at 6:37. Oh, listen, come on, I like challenging myself. Seeing no public and no one online, I will close it at 6:38. And take any council comments or concerns. And I have a couple. So if anyone wants to go before me, please do. And if not, go. I'm going to start. I would ask staff, I know we offered them to the RE1 school district. I understand. I think a lot of us know that the school district is probably not in the opportunity to purchase any of these, but I'm wondering if we are able to offer them to any of the RE1 school district employees directly. Because to me, this is not, I love that you guys are able to step in and have the bandwidth to execute on this, and don't think it's a bad idea. I just worry that this is the perfect opportunity for a young teacher trying to get a foothold in Basalt to be able to purchase a perfect starter home in downtown Basalt, walking distance to school, helping for us to execute in what our thoughts are on this building when we were all, well, some of us through this whole process of the walkability and the transportation. And I mean, the elementary and middle school are right there, still easy walking distance to high school. And I don't know how that works, but we obviously have the baseline of how it's working behind the high school, and I'm wondering if we could execute on that before pursuing this option. Is a long question, but, and I don't know who that's to or how that gets worked out.
I mean, I can say that just the way the ordinance was originally approved, it didn't contemplate employees as being within the preferred purchase hierarchy for things to the waterfall.
Yep.
If a unit were to pass through the waterfall, employees, like school district and other qualified employees, could purchase it because the occupancy is restricted on those deed restricted units to the qualified employees. And so I think that currently is how it would occur. But to change that approach would be a different, would be an amendment through the ordinance process. And, you know, similar to what's been requested by CMC as part of their request here. James, Michelle, you think I covered that right?
Yeah, but I would also add in that on the units that the town bought, the first priority for the units that the town has purchased are for town employees, and those are the 1-bedroom units. The second priority is for RE1 school district employees. So those units, which are more 1-bedroom units, at this point, if they were ready today to go out, they would be offered almost exclusively to school district employees.
To rent.
Right. If that helps.
Yeah, so in that vein, I guess for some of the same concerns, my inclination, of course, is to agree with Bach and P&Z because I applaud CMC for being in the financial position right now to purchase 9 units. But I feel like by approving the for sale amendment, it further penalizes all of the other entities that are not currently, and so I'm not saying that that's why they passed. I'm pretty sure that's why RA1 School District passed. You know, they may or may not be in the financial position today to purchase units, but that doesn't mean they might not be in 5 years, which is why I think the units need to go back through the waterfall if they are to be sold by CMC, to give them, put them back in front of the entities, because I feel like that was the spirit of our approval when the units came before us to go from rental to for sale. I feel like us approving that, that's the spirit of what we intended, was to give them the opportunity again to have another bite at it if they were in a more, you know, viable financial position.
Yeah, I would support what you said. I would support what Angel said, because I think that each of the steps we've taken since this received its initial approval has made it more complicated for the town and the community. And I agree that, you know, CMC is in a great place, and the school district is behind the 8 ball because of drop of enrollments, things like that. But there are other efforts out there to help them get some support to be able to get their employees into a unit, whether they buy it or they rent it. And I think the purchase process, after you go through 4 steps of attempting to put your own people in it, attempting to put another person that's an essential employee in it, and attempting to put somebody that lives down in Glenwood in it, and by the time you get to the 4th one, you've exhausted 120 calendar days, maybe. And then the purchase offer, that should just be, if it reaches that point of complexity, it should just be for sale to a qualified person, and maybe that's when the waterfall kicks in, or maybe it doesn't. But I agree with Angel that we don't want to have an unintended consequence down the road, one of which would be binding the town to a very complicated way of managing these units. Initially, when they were all rental, they were going to be managed by by somebody on site. And it looks to me like we're stepping into something that's a little more intensive on a staff level. And I'm not saying it wouldn't work, I'm just saying to be aware of that.
It's a question about the 4th option in resale.
And I think to go kind of back to Ryan's question, that it just, I feel like if we allow this, right, and again, I agree with Bach and P&Z with the proposed rental change, I have no problem with, but this is the for sale clause, that if we approve that and we allow CMC to do this, then my inclination would be to go back to square one and change the amendment, add an amendment and change the ordinance so that these units are made available to not just these entities, but the employees of these entities, because that is what CMC is doing. And I regret that it's taken you bringing this to us to make us realize that that's how the ordinance should have been written in the first place. But nonetheless, that's the conclusion that I've come to.
That's along my lines of thinking too, of that I think it's a solid idea. I like that an employee could own their own unit and not be as beholden to an employer. But I think if we do that, that would be something to apply to any of these organizations. And I'd like to make sure that's a little more universal.
Well, I had a few questions. So just to clarify, CMC is not in the waterfall at all, or they are technically because they're nonprofit?
They are in the waterfall related to.
And so how many CMC employees work currently in Basalt?
Thanks for the question. I apologize for being a little late. I actually had a calendar. I had this on my calendar for a little later. I'm Matt Gineschi. I'm the president of Colorado Mountain College, and I'm a Basalt resident. So I was able to get here quickly. So CMC, we have 1,500 employees total across all 8 counties that we operate in this area. And it's hard to say Basalt specifically because we have obviously the Mortgage space here across the street. We have 2 campuses, Aspen and Carbondale, Spring Valley, Glenwood Springs, and then also our Central Services Division. So
Right, but how many in Basalt? How many employees are coming to Basalt every day to work in Basalt?
there probably wouldn't, be I mean, we have one remote worker who's in Basalt right now.
Okay, and so that one remote worker, how many students are they working with, like physically in Basalt? How many CMC students are getting an in-person education in Basalt?
There isn't an instructional campus in Basalt.
So the tenants of these units then would likely be driving to Aspen and to Carbondale?
Aspen, Carbondale, could be Spring Valley, could be online, could be remote real-time. Most of our students, the typical CMC student today, takes classes at 4 different sites before they graduate. That's just the nature of how they take their classes. Not each site has all of the courses that typically will lead to for that student, so they kind of move around depending on where the courses are. They'll go online. So those are very common. Carbondale, I mean, just to give you a sense there, they offer a mix of English as a second language, which is a very large program. That is in Basalt also, so that technically is a CMC program operating out of Basalt Middle School. Our EMT program, so with fire science and first responders, that's trained out of the Carbondale site with Roaring Fork Fire at that particular location. And then they'll take whatever their other courses are depending on their degree program, and then supplemented by Aspen, Spring Valley, and Glenwood.
Okay, and so, you know, when we originally heard about this development, when it was originally proposed, it felt like a lot of the allure of having this density in downtown Basalt is that it decreases trips. It decreases trips. And I feel like for CMC, and nothing against you guys at all, but I feel like what it's creating is just more commutes, right? If you've got one employee that works in Basalt, and you don't have, really any students that are attending class in Basalt, to me, that's just creating more car trips. It's just more of the same on 82. Then my other question, and I would like to be able to ask the developer, but they're not here, is does anybody know when the project is scheduled to be completed? I mean, if you're a purchaser, do you have some approximate date?
We're a purchaser, so we do.
Spring of 26.
So I understand that the developer, wants to sell the units before they're built. But, for me, sitting in this seat, I feel like with 18 months to maybe 2 years to go, as things tend to run over, I don't feel particularly in a hurry to make an amendment when other organizations in the waterfall with employees who physically work in Basalt could be in a different position a year or two from now. And it's nothing against CMC, but I don't feel the urgency to make an amendment at this time.
I'm still triangulating here as far as who's gone and whatnot, so, yeah.
I talked.
I've talked.
Jill talked, and Angela talked. I guess my additional comment would be and once again, I appreciate you guys coming to the table and trying to take advantage of this, as you should. It's a great opportunity. I just feel like the language that we created as a council didn't take into account certain issues for some of these agencies that we saw. And echoing what Angela said, this is sold as a transit-oriented development that was going to cause no new traffic in Basalt, and I don't need to go down that rabbit hole that I dug myself. But the idea of us helping you guys with your housing issue when it's not directly helping Basalt, it's hard for me. It's hard for me to, I appreciate everything you guys are doing, and I appreciate the courses you offer, but like you said, I mean, if your students are going to all 4 different locations to graduate, I mean, and I know we have a great bus system, and I know it just seems like Basalt isn't the place to put your teachers or students. It's more a Carbondale or a Spring Valley or
May I respond to that?
Of course.
So, I mean, let me tell you, 10 years ago,
So I've been at the college 11 years. When I came 10 years ago, I used to say emphatically, I do not want to be a landlord. I do not want to get into housing. This is not who we are. 10 years hence, I will tell you, we now have apartment buildings. We have 4 apartment complexes in Breckenridge. We now have 2, a third on the way in Edwards. 2 of those funded by Eagle County, because that's partnership that we are trying to figure out. Spring Valley, Steamboat, and here in Spring Valley, I said, and then looking at these. And we bought 12 units in the valley here, open market, trying to help our employees figure out where to be. And what I can tell you is the logic, I understand the logic of what you're arguing. That's not necessarily how the college operates. You know, our students are moving all around, but they are the workforce. So as you envision, at least the way that we've worked with Breckenridge, we actually have a project in Salida that we're working with them on an affordable housing project in South Ark. And then in Eagle County, we put in the deed restriction in Eagle County, we're in Eagle County, that it says CMC students are the workforce. We move them back and forth because those are your future workforce. Those are the people who are going to be filling those jobs. And so when we're training teachers, nurses, first responders, firefighters, that's who we train. That's who your workforce is going to be eventually. And so we are the ones who are producing them. Like that, we are the only producers of them. There are no other colleges in this area. So as you think about skilled workforce and what you might need for Basalt purposes, these are not, and what we, you know, in the valley here, the 90, probably 3% of our students, they're local residents already. They already live here. They're just trying to figure out how to graduate and establish a career. These are not students who are coming from, you know, Denver or Salt Lake or some other place and coming here for a winter vacation. Like these are, you know, 30-year-olds with kids and, you know, they have families and they're trying to establish a career, and they will go to where the housing is. Now, the courses may be in different locations, but they become that workforce. And so I would just encourage the council, as you think about, you know, what your future is going to be and where they're going to come from. That's at least what we've been able to establish in other communities that see them not as sort of transient residents that come in periodically. They're actually investing in the future of what that community is going to need, because we're the ones who are going to produce them. So maybe a way to just sort of help conceptualize what it might be. And I recognize the lack of a campus, and that is the nature of where we are, and sort of the way that the college works is we really work across all of these communities.
So that was, it speaks to a question that I was going to ask, which is if we think about these people less as students and more as workers, do you have data on how many of your students work 1 or 2 jobs? And again, as I'm saying, if you think of them less as students that are going to 4 campuses that are not in Basalt, but more as workforce in the valley, I would have to assume, because I know quite a few people that attend CMC courses, right? It's not like that's all they do. They usually do also have 1 or 2 jobs. So do we know anything about where they're working, and what the likelihood is, speaking to what you were just saying, is that if they ended up living here in Basalt, that yes, still maybe they're going to school elsewhere in the valley, but then are they taking jobs and filling needed positions here in Basalt?
Steve can answer for his campus. Let me answer for the college, because I think we do in fact have those data. A typical CMC student, like just an average CMC student, is 28 to 32 years old and works 2 jobs. The typical CMC student works more than 40 hours a week. They're like every other person who is trying to establish a career up in the mountains. They are hustling, they're working, they're doing 2 different shifts, and they're trying to figure it out. And one of the mantras we've often said with housing, as much as we've resisted it, and this is not where we thought we'd be making major investments, we want our students to work less so that they can focus on school more and accelerate their time, the ability for them to, you know, get a good job, like move into the workforce. And they can't do that when they're fighting for just, you know, sort of staying afloat with the housing costs as they are for a typical resident. So our programs and the way that and again, I'll use Eagle County as an example since you're familiar with it. What we have in Edwards, there's a joint building there's 2 buildings in place, one that's being built right now. The one that we jointly operate with the Eagle County Housing Authority, we have a 50-50 split on the building. So 50% is Eagle County, quote, workforce, 50% is CMC students, but they move back and forth. So when the students graduate, they just move over into the workforce slot, and it opens up another, so we keep them in place. And that's been part of the strategy, is get them educated, let them work less, let them focus on, because the housing in Eagle, our studios are $1,100 a month, all inclusive. So it includes heating, electrical, internet. They don't have any HOA, they don't have any other costs outside of that. And we waive the first and last deposits. So we just allow students to move in. We try to make it as easy and cheap as possible to keep them here so that they can have stability. And that's really what the purpose of this is to try to get them to work less and fewer than 2 jobs, or fewer than, say, 45 to 50 hours a week. And I don't know if you have any specifics on your students, but that's sort of a global CMC standard for us.
Campuses follow that profile as well. Older, multiple jobs. Our most popular program in Carbondale is our fire science program, which is training the firefighters who get hired by Basalt, Carbondale. We're training the people who make communities stronger. So we're not like a private sector player.
I did sort of feel like this was coming into the pipeline pretty quickly. And the conversation that you just had with us, Matt, gives me more of a feel for how it does connect to our long-term vision of affordable housing in Basalt and who it serves. So I think there's a way to potentially do this, but it's going to maybe take more than one conversation to figure that out. Because I agree with you with that approach. And if we have, one of the waterfall criteria is people that are working in Basalt. So if there's a student working across the street at Mode Thai or at Tempranillo that has an opportunity to come home from class on a rafta bus and go to work at the restaurant or at wherever, at the grocery store, that's the connectivity I think we're looking for. And how that connection gets that person from here to Spring Valley is another, maybe there's a shuttle. You know, we've been talking about the transportation opportunity, the last mile kind of idea, and other things we've been talking about to partnership with you guys on. But I think that you maybe have opened up, for me personally, a thought process that this could work. Now the resale of it, I don't know about that, because that eventually you're going to support, and I think it said in the James memo that you would be in the position to buy down a unit if a person did want to buy it. That puts sort of a question out there about, well, what if that person then leaves, and how do you recover that buy down, or however you're going to do that? And that also, with the opportunity for a independent employee to buy, they may not have the buy down opportunity, but if they get one, it comes from another source. So there's all these things that could interweave and be figured out that could
Rick,
benefit both of us.
So a couple of answers. I mean, there are kind of 3 questions that you gave me there. So I'll cover 2. For the local workforce, so just think about who we are in the programs that you will most often see individuals who are local students who stay local. So for us in this valley, teachers, including early childhood education, that's a primary program of ours. We work with Roaring Fork School District across all of their schools. Our teacher candidates are guaranteed a job when they graduate. It is a unique program, that these are all local graduates mostly. They come back into their community, so that's one kind of profile you can think about. First responders and police officers. We run the only, it's called the Colorado Law Enforcement Academy up at Spring Valley, but they're all hired before they even go into the academy. So they are hired by the municipal agencies and sponsored when they go up. They may be at Spring Valley, but they're already Snowmass Village, Aspen, Carbondale here. Other police agencies have already hired them. So I can't guarantee how many it'll be in a given year, but those are the kinds of programs that we already have connected into our communities. And then health sciences, and I would just say I recognize there's not a hospital per se here, but there are hospitals operating in Basalt and others. So you've got, I'm over in the Willits area, and so we've got several, we've got Stedman and others that are over there. So all of actually the gal who drew my blood just a couple of weeks ago, she's a CMC student. She's working right over there. But any of those allied health programs, so we do all nurses. So again, it's at Spring Valley, but we train all the nurses in this area. All nurse assistants, all phlebotomists, our nurse aides. All of those programs are operating at multiple sites, but they work in this valley and in this community. So again, I can't guarantee where they may or may not land, but those are the kinds of programs that you would expect to see here. By and large, that's probably 80% of what you would expect on the volume of us. Others you'd see photography, artists, sustainability, some people who are working in local communities in our sustainability efforts, people who are working here at some of the nonprofits in the area. Those are our students. Aspen Valley Land Trust, they hire our students who are actually helping us with some of our conservation efforts. And so that's the profile. I mean, if you're kind of thinking about like where those individuals kind of fit. Now, as far as the buy down, we just launched this. So we're trying like all strategies on the table kind of, we're trying to figure it out with all the communities we work in. So we started with rentals for employees. Then we started building apartment complexes for both students and employees, which we have. Just 2 weeks ago, we launched our program that looks like the Good Deeds program for Eagle County. So we now put aside $2 million as a buy-down program to help keep our employees here. And so to your question, what happens when they no longer work here? Our provisions, I can't speak for other similar programs. Our program, it's called Mountain Futures. So our Mountain Futures program, we will allow an employee to qualify for up to $200,000 or 20% of up to $1 million property potentially. These aren't obviously that, but this, just to understand the logic. We provide the down payment. In return, we get a deed restriction to permanently restrict that property at that lower rate. And if the employee ever leaves employment with the college, they have 24 months to vacate, and at that point, any of their equity stops. So there's no incentive to stay, if you will. And it has to then transition over to either another CMC employee that has a similar income profile, or we will then open it up to any other other public agency, so police agencies, fire agencies. So they could then potentially qualify if we don't have another employee ready to purchase that building or that home.
That deed restriction would stay with the property regardless, forever?
Forever.
Okay.
So that's sort of how we've been thinking about this, is we're not trying to take things off the market. We have these tools, and we're trying to figure out like we don't know what we might do in the future, but that's the nature of the program that we've designed.
I might just
Thanks for.
add in if I
You wanna
can.
add something?
That the deed restriction in the packet, it prioritizes CMC students who are employed in Basalt first.
Yeah.
So that's a key aspect to helping gain that goal that you're looking for.
Thanks for coming out. Sorry I'm running late. I was hoping to get here by 7, but it seems like you guys have gone at a brisk pace up to this point. I had just some questions. James, thank you for providing the email with the list of all of the Basalt-based organizations. What I'm curious about from that, and this is a question for you, is what have we done? So we've gone through priority 1, 2, and 3 in the waterfall. We're in the midst of the waterfall now.
Sure.
What have we done to advertise how, when, and what duration to those employees? And if you guys have already answered that question, I apologize, but.
Yeah, it's been direct advertisement to those entities that are on the list, so it hasn't been broadened out to a public advertisement. It's went directly by email to those employers that are on the list, and they've been given, in most cases, like a month to respond.
So when was that first notification?
Well, it kind of went in the waterfall, so it was to the town of Basalt first. And I think we had a month to respond, and we did, and we said, we'll purchase 6 of the units. And then it went to the school district by themselves, I believe, was the next one.
And the emergency responders.
And then it went to
State.
the emergency responding organizations after the school district. And then it went to the nonprofit entities that are on the list, that are not the first responding agencies, like the Art Base, the Regional Library District. And I believe they had at least 3 weeks to a month.
So that's what I'm curious about, though, is like when, so I know the Conservancy's purchased one, or in the process of purchasing one.
Correct.
Roy Ford Conservancy. The other organizations on here, have they all been notified, and if so, when? And do they have kind of their right of refusal? Because that's, just from a process perspective, that's important to me, to kind of honor what we started.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, we've had the developer documenting that for us, and we've got the email chain for each of the organizations that they've provided, which staff could provide.
Yeah, I'd like to see initial notification, how it was communicated, and when their response is due. For each of the organizations, that would be helpful, just for context. Did you want to say something?
I can give you
It
a
sounds
quick
like you do.
rundown.
What's that?
I can give you a quick rundown. It started, the short version is, it started in August of 2024.
What started in August of 2024?
The process of
the
advertising to the waterfall.
Yeah, I'm not interested in tier 1, 2, and 3. I'm interested in these folks here in the list.
Well, the problem.
Because we've already been through tiers 1, 2, and 3.
I know, but the problem is the way the language is written. This was addressed right before you got here. The way the language is written is it has to be offered to the school district, not the school district's individual employees.
Right, because that'll come later. That's clearly spelled out in your memo from November of '24.
That would be.
They're the 5th tier, essentially.
Further on in
Right.
the waterfall.
So we're in the 4th tier, unless something is, I'm mistaken. So I just want to know where we are in the 4th tier, because these folks have probably received an offer. If I'm mistaken, tell me, but we're not an offer, but have received an invitation to make an offer.
Yes, that's correct.
I'm just trying to understand that. So I don't know if that's been answered already. If I have 3 heads and I'm wrong, let me know.
So I think that's what Michelle's trying to answer for you.
Okay.
So there are 24 entities that have been offered units starting in August through September, October, November, and December, with, let's see here, 24, 25, 3, 2, 21 declining the units.
Were they supposed to be concurrent like that, or does that not matter?
I'm just saving you time by not reading every single line. They're not concurrent. It goes through so you have a block that happened. The first priority was offered in August. The second priority was offered in September.
Okay.
The third priority was offered in October. And the last priority was offered in November and then followed up in December.
Okay, so that's the answer. So November, December.
Yeah.
So these guys are closed. So what about the individuals? Because they're the next.
They didn't get there.
We're not there yet.
Well, this,
Because they wanted.
if
Yeah.
it's
okay.
9 and 6 and 2, then
So
there's
then
nothing
after,
left over.
Done.
after these guys, then it would be individual employees.
Except that there won't be any units left if CMC buys 9, right?
Correct.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So if we.
Well, I know, I guess I'm just trying to make it real obvious of what we're saying here, which is that it seems like the resistance to 9 units going to CMC is the fact that that is what keeps these units from hitting the 5th tier of the waterfall.
Correct, because we're changing the waterfall
Yes.
in midstream, which I think is what some of the concern is.
Could I just clarify
Yes,
what
please.
We're not changing.
what they're allowed to do and what the changes are? So
Okay. Yeah.
CMC is in the tier where they have an opportunity to purchase now. If they purchase, they have the right to rent to their employees. And then if they can't rent to their employees, it goes through the occupancy waterfall.
Right.
With this request, this amendment to the approval ordinance, is to allow for them to rent to employees and college students, and then to create employees and change the rental tiers so it's employees and college students in Basalt, employees and college students in the valley,
Yeah.
and then onward down the waterfall.
So, yeah.
There's the additional request to be able to sell to employees. However, that's not been recommended by Bach and P&Z or staff, so I think we've kind of set that aside for now. So those are really the changes. And so, whether you
Yeah.
approve this or not, CMC still has the ability to purchase these units and put employees in there. in
But
these
let me,
units.
yeah, I read the pack, I don't mean to be short, I did read the packet, I understand all that. I'm sorry for not being clear about the condition of being able to rent to students. That's the change in the waterfall that I think is giving us trepidation here, because that, I don't know, you didn't have done it already, you would have, I don't know if you would do it or not. But I'm just trying to kind of lay out what I think the concern is, what I'm hearing so far. So.
I'd like to also just be clear that I'm in support of this as this ordinance as it's written, without the for sale option. So I work with a ton of these students, and I don't view them as transient or whatever. I view them very much as described as trying to make ends meet and plant roots here. It's not like I think they're going to get a degree and then move to New York for a fashion career or something.
Yeah.
I feel like this is, as stated, I feel that these folks are a workforce. They're the people I'm looking at hiring in a year or 2 or 3 or 4 years. So the fact that they're, either, students or teachers, I support this move, and I don't see a problem with kind of honoring the waterfall as has been described. If they want to put students in there, that I'm in support of. It makes sense to me. This is what we want to do. And if it doesn't go all the way to the end of the waterfall with no units left, at some point in time, the town of Basalt could have bought them all. It's not even a conversation then, right? So, it's going down the tiers as it's designed, as the wording is, and then here we are trying to figure out, how do we adjust the waterfall or say no in the middle of it for a variety of reasons, and we all have our own opinions on that. But as this is written, without the sale component of it, I'm in favor of it.
I agree with Dieter, and to me, we cannot, as we sit right here, we cannot stop CMC from buying these units. It is their right to do so. They have reached that point in the waterfall. And so if CMC is going to buy the units, the question is, how attractive do we want to make it for CMC to buy the units, which then goes to their requested changes, and how much of a fight do we want to put up? I agree with Dieter. I absolutely have no problem and would like to see CMC students. Employees, yes, that benefits CMCs. I think it benefits the community as well. But the students, I do think that benefits the town of Basalt directly. So I'm in favor of that, not in favor of the for sale provision for the reasons I stated earlier. But yeah, we can regret and how we wrote the original ordinance till we're blue in the face, but that doesn't change where we are right now, with CMC having the absolute right at this point to 9 units if they want them.
This is probably one of the more innovative approaches I've heard in my 40 years of dealing with this stuff in 40 years. That this is an incubator, this is a true incubator program that develops a local workforce in a local community and returns the investment that's made in this upon graduation. And then to have a defined career path, I can speak to a dozen of my buddies that have workforce issues, and they may not be related to teaching or nursing or any of the other things, but you just heard Dieter tell us about what the ski company's demands are for hospitality industries and service industries and all those things. I think that I agree with the sale thing. I'm not there yet. But this is a model that I haven't really thought about before. And I don't think that it exists in the current housing policies and guidelines, and maybe it does in Eagle County, but it doesn't, maybe Steve could answer that. I don't think it exists here, because we have a system where everybody applies for a unit, and you have 130 people in a lottery, and you don't know where they're going, right? This defines it so that the participants are captured early. I hate to say that word, but they're in the system early, and they have the rungs on the ladder are defined when they enter the program. There's no mystery, right? That's predictable. That's what our workforce needs, is predictability. They don't want to have to worry about running, having 2 or 3 or however many jobs and changing careers and moving from one place to the other. That's creating a whole bunch of other problems that we're having to manage. And I just, I agree with you, and I agree with you on the for sale. That can be worked out down the road somewhere. So I'm,
Answer anything on that?
the more I'm listening, the more I'm hearing. I'm sorry if I'm rambling, but I think this is something that needs to be looked at a little bit more. Maybe there's a little more notice, David, to some of the folks that, hey, this is happening, and they can adjust their models and how they accomplish this and bring people into the workforce.
I just want to make sure
Hospitals.
that
Yeah.
that everybody's had
I
like
agree,
the time
100%.
that's outlined in there, and like
Yeah,
it's all.
100%.
And I have like, just to be clear for the record, you guys are awesome. I have no issue at all with you guys buying units, and I think it's great. You should be on that list. What I'm just trying to figure out is it is an innovative idea, and does it make sense to allow that to also go to working students? It's an interesting idea. That's where I stand right now.
Yeah, and just to respond to that, and Rick, it's a good point. Again, I can't speak for what your opinion should be. I'll tell you that when we worked in the town of Breckenridge and in Eagle County, and we were explicit in saying CMC students are the workforce. They are one and the same. And so all we had to do at that point was clarify, how do we know when they're more workforce versus student? And so that for our own purposes, which door do they come in? Do they come in through the workforce? Do they come in through the student? And what we have done is we establish that any student who applies for one of our housing options, these apartments, they have to be full-time students, and that we're trying to help them get out of CMC with a career. Like, we're trying to get them into the workforce. So part-time students don't qualify, full-time students qualify. So there is this encouragement to try to pull them through the system. And then when they graduate, they can stay in that housing as a workforce resident. So it allows us to have some flexibility to keep them here so they don't graduate and hit a cliff. And like, they graduate, wonderful, got a job, and no place to live. And so we've worked with the local agencies to say, okay, how do we help a student who's in our law enforcement program? They get sponsored, they graduate, but now they need to go into a different lottery because they're back in the queue at their local enforcement or at their law enforcement agency. They may get it, but it may be a year or two until they can eventually get into one of the units that that particular agency has. In the meantime, we can keep them in our types of units. And so I think it provides, at least for the other communities, provides stability so that people aren't immediately leaving to whatever option provides an opportunity for them. That keeps them grounded and allows them to graduate and then be able to make a transition into the workforce in the local community.
So I had that question specifically about how this BCC will work. So let's say you have a student that is at CMC for 3 or 4 years, full-time student, and is a worker in Basalt, and they then are doing the fire program, and then they want to go work at Roaring Fork Fire. So what happens when they graduate and they're no longer a student at CMC? But then we're still back to square one with them not having anywhere to live because they can't afford anything, and Roaring Fork Fire didn't buy anything in BCC. So what does that look like in that scenario?
It's a great question. I think those are the kinds of things that we are attempting to solve by acquiring these units. I cannot tell you that I have a 10-year master plan on exactly how this is all going to work out. We have, again, we've built units, we have partnered with units, we are buying, we have realtors that are helping us buy. And in this case, this was an opportunity that appeared, and we go, okay, this could work, especially for a community, you know, the further you go up valley, and it's really hard for our students, but that's where the jobs are. And so trying to figure out how do we help this area, recognizing that Basalt is in our tax district. Like, this is a part of CMC. So we're just trying to figure out how we can serve our areas, and we'll work through those details. I think we have not experienced a student yet because we're so new into the housing, where that was faced with the dilemma of not being able to stay for some foreseeable future. Most of them have been able to make the transition without any trouble. And you see that other agencies often have their own housing opportunities in their whatever it is, whether it's a school district or fire district or. So we will work on those to try to make sure that there is a seamless transition. What we see CMC's job is, we are 100% focused on local workforce and providing good jobs for the people who live here that can stay here. We want to keep them. I have no interest in training people to send them off to, I can't remember where we said, to New York. We don't do that. In fact, we make headlines in higher ed newspapers because we actually say that out loud. And many people think that that's, like, education shouldn't say that. And you go, that's exactly why we're here. Like, we are here because we were designed to serve these communities. And part of serving them is making sure people can stay.
Yeah, and I want to be clear that I applaud CMC for proactively in all of these mountain communities that you operate in, really trying to be a part of the solution and putting your money where your mouth is in doing so. So, kudos for that. And I wish that more of our entities were in a financial position to do so. But Ryan talks a lot about, making sure we're very thoughtful in making decisions that don't have adverse long-term, side effects. And so I think that, that's just what we're trying to accomplish here.
And if I may, the scenario that Matt just spoke of where a college student gets a job and no longer is a college student or an employee of CMC, if they wanted to remain in the unit, I think we probably need to make further adjustment to the ordinance to accommodate that. I don't think that's currently covered by the language that we have in there. So
right, like if they get a job then with specifically one of the entities in the waterfall, what does that look like?
There might have to be a little bit of additional language added to the ordinance to accommodate that.
And what does that look like for CMC from a financial perspective? And, is Roaring Fork Fire renting from CMC? But it's worth exploring. Thank you, James.
But that, just to be clear, that aspect is consistent for all of the employers who own units.
Yeah.
So that's not unique to CMC.
Yeah, I think that this is the first time that this has come before us in a real-life scenario since, these units have been listed for sale. So it's just the first time that we've had a chance, thanks to CMC, to really think about and flesh out these details.
Yeah, it's like a little smoke test.
Yeah.
I wasn't here. Who else?
Everyone's pretty much spoken, so. I just would like to emphasize that these problems are coming up because we allowed this building to be condominiumized and for sale. So these are the unintended consequences that are coming down the pipeline from changing these buildings that we approve as rentals to now ownership, and now we're creating even more complicated language. And I feel, for me, the disappointment is the way the waterfall is structured. I didn't fully understand that we were just offering them to the district. I figured it was to the district and the employees. So I would just say, for future, that we should consider the way this language is and who we are really trying to help. I think you guys have a great story, and I love that you guys are able to take advantage of this. But I think that's where my arguments are coming from, is that sent these emails out, and I would also just like to throw this out there for everyone in this time of the affordability crisis and how much it is talked about of housing not being affordable, that not one of these other people on this list could step up and buy one of these units for who knows why. You guys are doing great financially, which is awesome, and I appreciate that you can step into this, but it just blows my mind that all we hear about is an affordability crisis, yet we offer 9 units to a lot of different people and not one other group steps up. It's just a little weird to me. It's not you guys, it's just just been here too long.
Did we get, I mean, we can guess why the school district can't buy them right now, but did we get feedback from those nonprofits to say it was too expensive, it's not the right size? What were they saying?
Yeah, so for instance, the school district's response was health insurance cost overrun, Glenwood units purchased. Aspen Valley Hospital is expanding on a higher priority project in Aspen. Valley View Hospital has no funding for purchases and are master leasing other properties. Another entity said they have a need for larger units, not studios. Another entity had no specific reason. Another one, funding not available. Only interested in larger units. Funding not available with business expansion. And then one was concerned about deed restriction rules. So maybe the good news of that is that there's not a single issue, that there are a handful, but they're definitely, And I guess for whatever it's worth, not every project's going to solve every problem.
What I really appreciate is the cultural attachment that this is going to create with people to the community. And also, I think it's 9 units. We have almost 10 times more in a pipeline right now that potentially could come online. This is a real groundbreaker for us to look at. Okay, we'll learn what happens over the next 2.5 years with this one while we're waiting for the 5th year for these others to potentially come online. And if this model works, it's going to accelerate our recovery in terms of workforce availability, the education of that workforce. And I think you're going to find that your students that are full-time that come through the system like this are going to be able to get a higher paying job and potentially move into a bigger unit in another project somewhere. And they're going to be in the same pipeline the whole time. They're not going to have to be deflected over to this county's housing authority or that metropolitan's housing authority. They're going to be in the housing system. And that sounds like social engineering, but maybe that's where it's at, right now, until other things change. And like I said, we've been trying to figure this out for a long time, and this is definitely a new benchmark.
So this is first reading, and you were ready to say something. This is first reading. We will have another bite at the apple, more questions and thought can go into second reading. Is there any other comments or questions that anybody has? Otherwise, I entertain a motion. I don't want to cut off the discussion, but.
Well, the last, is 2 weeks too soon? It's going to take a little more than 2 weeks to digest, or is this a
I'm
continuation?
comfortable with 2 weeks.
Is there a consensus around the sales, the amendment about the sales? Because I feel like we should talk about that. I mean, if we're all in agreement that we don't agree with that amendment about the sales, then we should say it now so that it's not in the second reading.
Right, because
As
that might
drafted,
change
it's not in there.
CMC's
Yeah.
direction.
As drafted,
know.
the sale component is not in the ordinance. It
Because
was
P and Z
requested,
and
but it
Box
was not
didn't
included.
like it, or staff
Got it,
didn't
okay.
like it, yeah.
I'm just going to add,
Requested, but not.
Can we ask, does that change your number of units purchased? If we're allowed to ask that? If you can't put them up for sale for
So-
employees?
I can hear, let me give you an answer that's not the easy answer is no. The harder answer, and I just would say that as all of you think about, and to Rick's point, and like you gotta get creative and figure out what's coming, we are starting to estimate that when the current workforce that we have, and some of us that are closer to retirement than the newer employees, we expect to have at least 50% of all jobs at the college covered by an affordable housing unit in order to even stay alive,
That doesn't surprise me.
operationally. So that's 700 units that we're gonna need at some point at the college across our districts. And we have 14,000 students at the college. So 9 units here, it's great. And you know, if they were offering 90, we would probably be at the table for that too. And it's just the nature of what we're wrestling with. And so I don't want to suggest that that the number that we have it's 8 or 9 at this level. I think we are trying to figure out how to support our communities in every way possible. And we take advantage of opportunities like this when they arise. We didn't know it was going to be available. Our board started hearing about it in October or November when we thought it might be a possibility. They directed me to engage in December, and then here we are. So it's sort of, we've been moving quickly, but we know that for us it's a long-term game where we're going to be having to do this every opportunity in every corner for the foreseeable future.
Does just out of curiosity, the potential to sell these to employees sort of allow you to act as a bit of an enterprise where you can get some needed capital out of those to then reinvest in other
That you
properties?
just said the linchpin point would be, we know how much we have to allocate to certain projects, and if we can free up capital in order to invest in more projects. We have one in Glenwood that we're looking at, which might be 38 units that we're thinking about, and it's constant, and you know the pricing and how this looks when you're doing it. And so I don't know that we have a plan. Our goal with the purchase is that we know we have a lot of, especially younger employees who are new. Like we have in our marketing division, we have 3 graduates of our Spring Valley photography and you know, they're graphic designers, and they're creative, they're amazing. They're 27 years old, and they're trying to figure out how to make a living in this community, and they know purchasing is totally out of bounds. It's just not going to happen unless there's an option available for something like this. But a studio for an unmarried 27-year-old who's starting their career, maybe. Like that helps them start to build equity. And one of the goals that we have at the college is, we call it our care commitment to our employees, that we want our employees not to be completely beholden on us as an employer for everything. It changes the relationship when their job, their benefits, their leisure, and their housing is now all tied up in one entity. Like it changes things. And so we're trying to figure out, can we come up with options that are responsible with taxpayer dollars and allow our employees to start to build a little bit of equity so that they can eventually, if they outgrow the studio, they want to move on, well, now they have a little bit of a nest egg, and it's not just rental income that's been coming through. So that's really the thinking. We're not trying to get into a transactional relationship with the units. It's just we hear from employees who come into the college, they live in one of our rental units for a year or 2 while they're just getting settled into the valley, and then they're ready to move on. And if they have no ability to actually capitalize on any of that investment, that becomes a little bit of a snag for them. So in addition, not to belabor the point, but we've also thought about, do we offer an option where employees that are renting for a certain amount of time, that a percentage of their rental, of their lease payments go into a think of it as like a savings account or a trust, that when they eventually are ready to move out, that we give them some capital to go with them so they can actually go compete in the marketplace and have some chance. So we're thinking about all of these options. I don't think we've squared, every peg on this to try to figure it out, but that's why we put that provision in there, was to say, we know we have a deed restricted option already. You and me as taxpayers in this community are already committing to that. And we're trying to help people stay, and so we're just trying to say, would this project also be available for that kind of an activity if it were something that we wanted to do? There's no plan for it, but we also don't know, 10 years from now, things might change, and we want to be able to at least have the option to figure out how do we keep people here if that's something that Basalt thinks is desirable.
Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments?
I just have one more comment, and that is it shows the demand for these units. I think we're also pitched these stories of how much people want a studio unit, and I think this is kind of proof in the pudding that maybe not everyone wants a studio unit if we got all these rejections from all these different organizations. Not to say that studios aren't good. I've lived in a studio myself. It was a great stepping stone. But just food for thought, future councils, future stuff that we are gonna see, you know.
This was a project where we had essentially traded a one-bedroom that would have been affordable for a studio that would have been affordable. And
Yeah, we have studios, 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms across all of our communities. And what we have found is studios are preferred to 1 bedrooms because people don't want to pay extra for a door. Like, that's what we hear all the time. It's like, either give me the cheapest thing possible, but if it's a 1 bedroom and it costs me an extra $300 a month, no thank you. I'll just live without the door. So that's one option. That's one. But for the vast majority of our students, many of them have families, and so 2 bedrooms. What we did in Eagle County, Edwards, in the Eagle County project, the one building we had has 36 units, and it's split evenly between studios and 2 bedrooms. For the next building, we actually trimmed down the studios. So we ended up taking studios and making 2 bedrooms, and we re-engineered it. Just because the demand for those who are a little older or maybe have a spouse, the 2 bedrooms are really, really high demand. So studios are preferred over 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms are preferred for most couples and others. So.
And I wonder if this was on the market for individual buyers. I'm not sure the demand behavior would be the same, you know what I mean? Because that's a great bolt hold into the housing market if you can get it. If you're an individual trying to build equity, that's in the back of my mind with this, you know, the teacher who's starting off in their job, whoever in that kind of situation, like those are fleeting opportunities in this community at this point. And I might be generous. So I did also want just a clarification on the condominiumization. I know you're saying, you know, can you just briefly explain, Jeff? I don't mean to put you on the spot. Like it's not a change in use. People are allowed to condominiumize. Like that was something. I mean, I just want to make sure that
I didn't say they weren't allowed to.
This is the
consequence of us making that decision.
People are. That's
Yeah, I mean, that application was not as straightforward, though, if we're just taking a rental product and turning it into a condominium product, because there were a change in the conditions that were attached to what was approved. But generally, if you're condominiumizing an apartment building, it might have to go through, I mean, it's effectively a change in use. And so there is very little discretion on that action. But when there are additional conditions that are tied to it that need to be changed, that's where some of the greater discretion was. And that was the case here, because there was some change from the, how it was structured in terms of rental priorities to the occupancy waterfall. But the condominiumization action itself is, it's a change of use with little ability to reject in isolation.
Thank you for the primer again on that.
Yeah.
I guess it's just hard for me to imagine that if we hadn't condominiumized, that we wouldn't have, teachers and first responders and other people who are higher up in the waterfall having rented studios. I mean, maybe I'm wrong.
We'll never know.
We'll never know.
Water over the dam.
Which kind of
It would
leads
be more accessible, is what
to
I'm
my
saying.
closing point, and I'm only making this now because I unfortunately can't be at the March 11th meeting. I think for me, at least, what I'm taking from this is that, A, I maintain that my position is that I'm supportive of the changed language for the rental, but not for the sale. But I think the big picture is that we, as a council and staff, can learn from this situation, meaning the BCC approvals and this request. And as we plan future projects and draft ordinance for those projects, we make it such that the students that CMC are going to be training then have the opportunity to purchase or rent units in the new developments. CMC uses these units to train the workforce, and then we use the new developments in the pipeline to house them once they graduate. And I think my big lesson here is, I think in line with what Angela and Ryan are saying, is that we need to be opening this up to the individuals in the workforce and not just the entities in future projects.
And I think,
And David-
we have some examples of that coming down the
Yeah,
pipeline,
exactly.
which is good.
And that's what I'm saying. It's just, it's, like Michelle said, not every project's gonna solve every problem. And so this project, with CMC buying 9 of them and us buying 6 of them, certainly solves some problems. And so then it's our job to go, okay, well, we've solved for some of these problems. Now we need to try and solve for some of these problems with the future projects.
And earlier I
Hey,
mentioned.
wait, just really quick, Jeff.
Sorry, I was just replaying my comments before in my
no worries.
head,
Go
and I
ahead.
think I misstated
'Cause
that.
that's what
I
lawyers
meant to
do.
say that the condominiumization process is changing the form of ownership. It's
Not-
not a
not
change
use.
of the use. And there's a
Thank you.
provision in Kiowa related to the ability to, inability to place those types of restrictions on that change in the form of ownership. And again, if there are still requirements in doing that, like if there were some triggers based on that kind of creation of additional units that would need to be complied with, that's kind of a non-discretionary thing. And then what we had were some conditions that did need to be changed, which council did have discretion on. Sorry, I just replaying that, wanted to make sure I said it right for the record.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, my first thought about the town's staffing to manage the 4 conditions and criteria, I think that you're gonna manage it adequately. I don't think there's gonna be any question that you're gonna be accountable to the process that you've created, and the town's just gonna be able to work with you. This partnership's got a bright future, so to speak, and I see it benefiting us for the long term. And if it works at 9 units, and we can expand that and make it work for more, and that attracts other people into the mix, like this list, that right now we're going, well, I'll bet a lot of it is just going, well, I don't know enough about this. Maybe they're underfunded, but maybe that funding will take on new meaning for that opportunity that they have if they figure out that there's a real opportunity there to keep people here. And that, to me, is a sustainable model, right? And that's what we're after here. We don't want the coming and going and all that stuff. We want this place to be a place. So I'll make a motion to continue it to March 11th.
Second.
So, I got it. So,
With the-
are we, the motion I heard was to continue first reading. Did you mean to say we're approving on first reading, or did you want to continue?
Continue.
It's okay. I just want to make sure.
I think there's
explicit.
some things to sort out, and especially on the for sale part. But if we're gonna, or you're gonna approve it tonight, but I think maybe there's a little opportunity to digest this a little bit.
So this is an ordinance, so there's 2 readings. So if you approve it on first reading and continue the public hearing, we got to come back for a second reading no matter what. And so that is, as proposed, that would be on March 11th for the second reading. Again, the for sale condition is not in the ordinance, so if you want that in the ordinance, there would need to be an amendment. What I've heard is that you don't want it in there, so as drafted, it would not include that. So continuing the first reading would be, we're doing a repeat of tonight, and then we still have a second reading.
I wouldn't, I mean,
Just go to the
I
second
would go as it's written here.
To the second
That
reading.
would be a.
Yeah, that's.
So we have
right
a-
to the second reading, I don't see a need to continue this first reading.
So we have a motion on the
So-
floor right now.
So Rick could withdraw his motion if,
That's kind of what I meant. I mean, if the step is to approve it on first reading or whatever it is, but I think we need that second reading.
Yes.
So Rick, if you want to
Just kinda
withdraw
wrap
your
things up.
motion, and Hannah, if you agree
Then-
to him withdrawing the motion?
I agree.
That's fine.
Okay, so the
Rick, could
motion
you-
is withdrawn, and do we have a motion?
Mayor, I move that the town council approve ordinance number 6, series of 2025 on first reading and continue and set the public hearing and second reading for March 11, 2025.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Pam, will you please call the roll?
Certainly. Let's go with Dieter Schindler,
Yes.
Hannah Berman,
Yes.
Angela Anderson,
Yes.
Rick Stevens,
Yes.
Jill Dupré-Bouchard. Yes. Ryan Slack,
Yes.
and David Knight.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you
both.
for,
Thank you
thank you
all.
for a great discussion.
Yeah.
And
It was enlightening. I feel like I learned a lot about CMC that I didn't know before, so.
We would love to host you at some point and show you all about CMC.
and being innovative. Thank you. I mean, like, it's good. Get the brain cells moving.
Thank you.
See you.
Thank you.
So that's the last agenda item, I believe. Do we have to do anything with 7E, or we just say nothing and move on? It's already moved.
Nothing.
It's noticed and we're good?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So
Yep. Sounds good.